babes. Welcome back to another episode of the Babe That's Bonkers podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee. Welcome back. I'm happy to have you here. Happy to be here. Today is a fun one. We are celebrating the winter solstice. Happy solstice, folks. It is the shortest day of the year, longest night of the year, and the pagan holiday of Yule is often celebrated today. So we're going to be diving into all of that today, just like history of the holiday, different little nature-based traditions, some fun witchy hippie things, if you will. And, of course, I'm going to start out with a life update. So we'll just get into that so then we can chit-chat about, like, the actual fun stuff, like the holiday that's today. Not every day has to be all about me. But I did want to share that the cookie boxes were a success. I spaced out my dough making days over a couple days. So I had 2 dough days where I made 2 recipes each. And so day 1 was dough making for the cinnamon roll snickerdoodles and the chocolate M&M cookies. I had a bit of a catastrophe because it turned out all my flour went bad. It smelled like Play-Doh, and I kind of knew it and then put it in the dough anyways, and then tasted it. You're not supposed to taste raw dough because it has raw eggs in it, but whatever. I survived. And yeah, it tasted as weird as it smelled. And then I Googled and it was like, yeah, that flour is stale. And I was like, cool. I just used a whole pound of butter, but it's fine. And then I went to the store and I got fresh ingredients, and it was literally 10 million times better. So, I got the bad luck moment out of the way early at the beginning, the get-go, and I needed to go to the store anyways to get M&Ms for the second dough I prepped that day, which was a chocolate cookie with M&Ms in it, and they were Christmassy. So that was fun. And yeah, I just rolled them out and put them in the freezer. And then day 2, I actually baked some white chocolate macadamia cookies, some adult cookies for my partner's birthday. And I prepped chocolate chip cookie dough that day, the regular kind. So that was kind of a 2-for-1. I got to prep some dough for Christmas. I also got to make my partner his favorite cookies for his birthday. So that was an efficient moment or whatever. And I waited until my baking day for the 4th dough, the sugar cookie dough, because they were cut out cookies, and they're just more complex to freeze. So I was just whatever, we'll just do it that day. And so I baked all the doughs I had frozen. Then I made the sugar cookies, baked those, made frosting to decorate them and whatnot. And I also whipped up some of that peppermint fudge and Christmas crack bark. I didn't make it to the pretzels, just to give you a full update. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to my baking episode or whatever. And yeah, I went on a little excursion to the dollar store and got a bunch of very cute tins and stuff like that, packaged everything in Ziploc baggies, cute tissue paper. Wrote out Christmas cards that had a cute little menu. I thought it was pretty adorable. And I mailed it out to our parents and stuff for Christmas. Easy peasy. Everyone's taken care of in our immediate family. I hope to expand my Christmas cookie recipient base as I just practice more and more, but we're starting small and whatnot. But yeah, the cookies made it safe and sound. It has been confirmed and they're enjoyed. And I think it's okay that we send out our gifts or whatever before Christmas Day. I think that spreading out the celebrations of the holiday season is just very fun. 'Tis the season is what they say. You don't have to save all the fun for just one day. That was kind of a bar. Moving on. I also had a Christmas adventure today, which was super duper wholesome and fun. I will probably share more about it in an upcoming episode where we will be sharing lots of different fun, wholesome Christmas stories. But long story short, the company I work for sponsored a few different classrooms for the holidays, made sure that all the kids got gifts and stocking stuffers and all kinds of fun goodies. And I got to like go to the school and be a part of like handing out the gifts to the kids today. And it was very, very special. And I really love doing stuff like that for the community. I sponsored a kid and got him a gift, and it was cool to like watch him open it and whatnot. And yeah, 'tis the season also includes, giving back in whatever way you can. And especially not having any kids of our own, it's just really special to still make the effort to make sure that some kid out there is having a happy holiday, And whoa there, Onyx. Overall, just a really wholesome, wonderful, Christmassy experience. Just some final Christmas thoughts before diving into the OG Christmas, if you will. I am so behind on everything. I have not decorated yet. I got the decorations out of storage, so that's progress. And I guess I'm not so behind. I did the like cookie thing, gave out whatever gifts I'm giving out besides my partners, and I'm not gonna say what it is yet, but I have some things to do, and time is of the essence at this point. Like, I have less than a week, and it's fine. I'm like half ready. I like have the things. I just need to like make them the gift, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't. I'm being very vague and elusive. Just in case he like listens to this. He probably won't. Like before Christmas, but he might. Just in case. I can't spoil the surprise. I'm very against spoiling surprises. But yeah, I'm very behind in the decorations department. I think this happened last year where I only put up decorations like the week before Christmas, and then I kept them up like most of January to just like still be able to enjoy them. So I think officially next year I'm going to turn into one of those people who decorates immediately after Thanksgiving. It's just what you have to do in order to enjoy all of the hard work that it takes to actually decorate your house for enough time to make actually decorating your house worth it, if that makes sense. So, yeah, that's just an epiphany I'm having immediately in this moment. I just celebrated 420 before recording this, so I'm a little bit rambly, a little bit spacey. It's also later in the day. I woke up very early. I was on the road at 6:30, and it was quite the drive. So I'm just, low on brain cells today. I don't know why I said that so weird, brain cells. But we are persevering because tomorrow is the winter solstice for this year. And I don't want to be late. I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss it. So here we are. We're going to be recording this episode today. If my computer would cooperate, that'd be cool. First thing, I wanted to talk about this little Google search I did. AI's take on Yule versus the winter solstice, because I was like, wait a second. These are two separate things for sure, but they're kind of the same. So I just want to clarify what's what. And Yule is a pagan holiday festival that takes place on the winter solstice. So the winter solstice is the time of year. Yule is the celebration title. So what would be in place of like, I don't know, I guess Christmas is kind of both, but I think that makes sense anyways. And the winter solstice is a time of year where it is the shortest day and longest night. And then after that, the days start getting longer again. So it's about like welcoming the sun, I do believe. Yeah, Yule is a celebration of the sun's like rebirth and the return of light and warmth. Like, how wonderful is that? And I don't know, and how wonderful is it to be appreciating other energetic entities in our universe that are symbiotically existing with us to help us create life and exist. Like, we couldn't exist if we weren't the exact distance that we are from the sun. That's really crazy to think about. So if you need something to have if you haven't had an existential crisis in a while, there you go. Ponder on that. And moving on, it gave some like tradition suggestions for Yule. So I'm just gonna go ahead and like name a couple. One of the little like traditions it recommends is making or baking a Yule log, and I think that would be so fun, but also quite challenging. The only time I've seen a Yule log or like one of those like log rolls being made is on like the British baking show, and yeah, it looks absolutely delicious, but can I wing it is the question. I'm not the best with cakes. Cakes are a lot more challenging than cookies. They're definitely a level up in my opinion, but I guess at the end of the day it's really just understanding baking ratios and consistencies and trusting whatever Pinterest recipe you're using. So maybe I will attempt a Yule log. I mean, it's tomorrow. That's like really fast, but I do have oh my goodness, I just like shook the whole desk. I do have a winter solstice party to go to this weekend. I think that was the little life update I was forgetting that like perfectly led into this episode that I absolutely missed the opportunity to discuss earlier. But we can talk about it now because here we are, remembering. And timing is perfect because my partner's going to be out of town, so I'm just going to be hanging out, and I get to go to a hippy dippy winter solstice celebration. And I've decided that I'm going to bring like a log with me. I don't know, I might like write or carve Yule onto it, but like just one log, because we do have a lot of firewood that we didn't use when we went camping because it was rainy and wet. So, you know, you can't, fires and water, you know, don't really mix very well. So we have a lot of leftover firewood, and some of them are like big logs, and I think that would be really funny. And there's going to be a bonfire anyway, so might as well contribute in that way. Like, other people can bring alcohol, I can bring tinder. So even if I don't bake a Yule log this year, I will definitely burn a Yule log, and I'm excited because I didn't do any like bonfire type thingies for the Halloween Samhain celebration or whatever, and I'm simply a fan of bonfires. Like, how can you not be? Fire's mesmerizing. There's something very magical about it in itself. You know, it's its own element. That's pretty crazy to think about. Another tradition it recommends is like writing a message to honor a loved one who has passed. And I think it's just really sweet that they always take the time to honor the people in your life that are no longer with you physically, at least. And especially during the holidays, you know, people get really sentimental. Family traditions play a big role in all these things. And I think providing yourself with like a really healthy, sweet, sentimental outlet to honor and remember people in your life that you have loved is quite special. And a couple more lighthearted traditions were making homemade ornaments. And this last one I'm concerned about, and I don't want to investigate anymore, but it says using a Yule goat as decoration. And I don't know what a Yule goat is, but I will not be purchasing any goats this year. So we're just gonna go ahead and move on to my favorite witchy blog, The Busy Pagan. So as always, there will be a little link to the blog below, and I'm just gonna like float through the different like concepts that stick out to me, but I highly recommend going and reading the full article if you're interested. I think there's a lot of just cool information on there and whatnot, but hey, we're gonna discuss it now. So, or you can like pull it up to follow along if you're feeling it. But it just mentions that Yule is like the marking point for when the days start to grow longer, which kind of symbolizes the sun as being reborn. And the pagan festival of Yule wasn't just like a pop-up, like one day holiday type thing. It was actually like a marathon festival consisting of many days, which is kind of where the like 12 days of Christmas thing comes into play, I do believe. So the winter solstice kind of like kicked off this like string of holidays for the Norse and Germanic cultures, and it just like rolled into the new year, January. So, I mean, that's kind of like what we do if we have parties in between Christmas, New Year's. And by we, I mean just like average people in society participating in commercial holidays. But these festivals were very informal and were really just about celebrating and feasting and toasting to good health and honoring the sun. So it also goes through a bunch of different symbols for the Yuletide season, and a lot of the whats are exactly what you would expect, but the whys are what's interesting. For example, the colors of the Yuletide seasons include red and green. Red for energy and green symbolizing renewal. So there's meaning behind that ugly Christmas sweater and whatnot. White being the snow and the blank slate it provides for the landscape. Blue for the crisp winter sky, symbolizing reflection, serenity, and introspection. Gold and silver for the disco balls of Yule. So maybe, New Year's didn't do it first either. But, you can imagine that gold would symbolize the sun, and, we are celebrating its return after all. And I also didn't mention, I think that the reason why we're celebrating the return of the sun is because the winter is, pretty cold and barren. Like, they could just be really harsh sometimes. I could see that, especially after attempting camping in the wet snow for just a couple days with equipment, living in that tough stuff. So, and the return of the sun leads to the return of spring and all of the plants, which are, necessary for eating and whatnot and surviving, stuff like that. So, very cool, very cool. It does talk about a few different crystals, but the one that stuck out to me was the garnet. It symbolizes the inner fire and keeping the spirit warm in cold times, so I thought that was super duper sweet. I'm not super into the crystal game yet, but I'm sure I will get there. Just baby steps into the witchy woo-woo world. Right now, I am researching tarot cards and all those different symbols, which I think is super interesting. I'm very excited to start practicing stuff like that for like journaling reflective purposes. And once I get the hang of that, I will be ready to introduce something new into my spiritual routines. But for now, we're just keeping things simple. And by spiritual routines, I say that very loosely. I think that when it comes to meeting my spiritual needs, that's something that just happens intuitively, like as I need it. I also think that the universe kind of forces me to meet those needs at times if I am neglecting them. And I also think that celebrations like these holidays are also a great time to just check in and see what you need spiritually to fill your cup. Moving on to the symbols. First up, we have the Yule log to bring light and warmth on the longest night of the year. Next up, we have the evergreen wreath representing eternal life, which I think is very interesting because I've been pondering the concept of how there's like one of those like scientific laws that discusses, how energy cannot be created nor destroyed. I'm not sure who by. If you know, please comment below. But keeping that in mind and like considering all life as energy, it really makes sense that life would be eternal because, in the natural like process of things, how life is created and then decayed and then used for a new purpose. If you think of like fungi and their like decomposition purposes and how that like benefits the soil to create new life, it really is eternal. It's a cycle. It's a circle, like a wreath. Happy holiday. Snowflakes, symbolizing the beauty of individuality, as each of them are unique. Candles are also very special, as their light is a tribute to the sun's return after the longest night of the year. And also probably quite helpful to see as you're doing things on the darkest, longest night of the year. Also coldest, probably. So poinsettias are actually popular at this time because they're supposed to symbolize the sun, which is a key symbol, of course, during the winter solstice. Other plants would be holly and ivy, symbolizing protection and resilience as a life force, something that is like abundant in the cold winter season where they just don't have a lot of light and it is very cold, but they're still growing during that time. Mistletoe also represents the continuation of life, which is probably why you're supposed to like kiss underneath it. You're celebrating love, which creates life, and that would be the continuation of life and whatnot. And I also think it's funny that mistletoe, I'm pretty sure, is like a parasitic fungus or something like that. Something that like leeches off of trees. Like if you have mistletoe on your tree, you probably don't want it because it's definitely, causing some issues with that tree's health, if that makes sense. But it's super abundant in nature, and that's just how things go. And if you think about it, the tree is just sharing its resources to help the mistletoe exist. So that's kind of symbiotic, I guess you could say. So when it comes to like the symbols of Yule, it's really about, rebirth and the cyclical cycles within nature. And if you think of like the year as this freaking stupid cord, if you're just listening to this, you can't see that I'm wrestling with my headphone cord. But, sorry, weird moment. But, what was I gonna say? Do you ever do that? Do you ever like start talking about something that actually is relevant and then you get distracted by something silly and goofy and it throws your train of thought off the tracks, and suddenly you're just a silly goofy goober and no longer a well-spoken intellectual because you don't remember what the heck you're talking about. But I was talking about cycle patterns in nature, and I think it makes a lot of sense that would be a part of the winter solstice, because if you think of like the 4 seasons and the summer and winter solstices and the spring and autumn equinoxes, they're all just like checkpoints within the cycle of the year, the cycle of the seasons, the cycle of life. So I think I'm really starting to understand what we are celebrating here happening in nature. So the 3 main traditions and customs of the Yuletide celebrations include the burning of the Yule log for good luck and protection in the home. I'm pretty sure it's like protection from the spirits that are out and about on such a long night. Again, the evergreen wreath symbolizes, nature's cyclical patterns, and its unyielding spirit. It also talks about wassailing. I might be saying that wrong, honestly, but, I don't speak Old English, so my apologies. But it's toasting to, like, good health, but in, like, a really lively way that involves, like, song and dance and a, like, shared beverage, like nice warm cider. I love a good hot apple cider. That's what I need to get on with. I haven't had any apple cider yet this year, I don't think, and that is highly disappointing. I also have a hot cocoa bomb to be used quite soon, so maybe that's what we'll do tonight. We'll make some hot chocolate. That could be fun. Fun little Friday festivity. So getting into the Yule lore, I'm going to read some of this stuff verbatim because it is quite interesting. Because the first one is about Yule lads. And if you have watched The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, based on Archie's comics, which I saw at Walmart the other day, I wanted to get them so bad, but it wasn't a part of the mission. It wasn't in the budget to be spending things willy-nilly. It's Christmas time. We're focused. And yeah, Archie's comics, I want to start collecting. acting. But The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I'm getting off track. But one of the episodes around the Yuletide season talks about the Yule lads, and so this is just something that I was like familiar with, which made me really, really excited, and also shows that the show is based on like research, which I think is quite obvious because if you have seen the show, there's so much symbolism in it, and I would highly, highly recommend. It is quite the cinematic experience, I think I could say. You know, potentially geared towards like a little bit of a younger crowd, but I think being older and just like having more references makes it all the more fun personally. But to each their own, give it a gander if you're feeling it. But this thing about the Yule lads. From Icelandic folklore, meet the Yule lads, a merry yet mischievous band of 13 trolls who, starting 13 days before Yule, visit children across the country each night. Each lad has a peculiar habit ranging from slamming doors to licking spoons. And spoiler alert, one of the episodes with the Yule lads, you know, they were like opening like the cabinet doors and like dropping things and knocking things over, and I think they like spilled flour or something in the kitchen, and it was just really funny. So I was just like, oh my goodness, exactly that. I know what you're talking about. I'm in the know. I'm in the witchy woo woo club or whatever. So this next one, I don't know how to pronounce. I think it's like Modernit or something like that. Again, Old English. My apologies. I'm just a modern day American. Okay? But known as Mother's Night, and it's believed to be a significant part of Yule celebrations in pre-Christian Britain. Supposedly celebrated on what we now call Christmas Eve, and was a time to honor the female ancestral spirits and goddesses, which I think is incredibly interesting that we take a moment to honor just like the female spirits during the Christmas time, because we also take moments to honor like Mother Mary. Yeah, that was her name. Yeah, it was. Oh, I got a text. Christmas is also a time to honor Mother Mary and like the Catholic Christian side of things. So it's just quite interesting to like draw similarities between things, almost as if it's all just like symbolism that we're supposed to learn from or something like that. I'll go ahead and read the third one too. It's from Norse mythology, I do believe, called Odin's Great Yule Hunt. In some traditions, Odin, the All-Father in Norse mythology, is believed to lead a great hunt during the Yule season, riding his 8-legged steed across the night sky. It has its name, but I'm not gonna butcher that. But, riding his 8-legged steed across the night sky. Almost like Santa and his reindeer or something like that. This great Yule hunt was both awe-inspiring and a little frightening, serving as a reminder of the wildness of nature, even in the season of slumber, which, I don't know, I think that would make sense that, like, the sleigh comes from just, like, your actual, like, mode of travel, living in the snow and relying on animals for motor power. Like, horsepower was actual horses first before it was cars, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert. The article also discusses Yule deities like Odin, the Green Man, and Frigga, also from Norse mythology, I believe Odin's wife. And if you're super interested, you can go ahead and check that out. But I'm really eager to jump into the foods portion of things, and I've been yip-yapping for a long time, so I'm trying to like wrap things up. And so the Yule tradition heavily includes feasting, one of these things being meat gloriously roasted, which I think is pretty common. Like, a lot of families do prime rib. I'm personally gonna do a ham. The Grinch did roast beast. Like, all across the board, there's some meat gloriously roasted. And yeah, I think it makes sense that would just be like the center of a feast, especially because, fruit and stuff like that isn't super abundant. You had your root veggies, and then you had your meat that you hunted. And if you're a part of Odin's great Yule hunt, then hopefully you'll have lots of roast beasts available, you know? It also brings up, some hot apple cider or a like decorated Yule log cake again. So we'll see what this little shindig this weekend includes. It also discusses fish being a staple for like coastal areas, which obviously makes sense. The ocean's just always there. It doesn't really have like a season. I mean, the fish do have like breeding seasons and like migration seasons and stuff like that, but like the ocean itself doesn't. And they're options if you're by the coast, I presume. Honestly, when I'm explaining and like, or just like talking, commenting about all of these different like pagan holidays, I somehow imagine that everything is occurring in like the 1600s or something like that, like before the modernization of civilization. And I think I need to officially include that context to like pair with my thought process. See, I love this blog because at the end it gives some like really easy doable options to celebrate the holiday, and I just think that is really, really cool. So a few of them are lighting a Yule log, crafting yourself an evergreen wreath, holding a solstice vigil. Holding a solstice vigil was kind of a new one, spending the longest night in quiet and welcoming the return of the sun at dawn. There's also like sunrise yoga, which I think is more up my alley. I think I really want to watch the sun rise. That's like my personal goal, to celebrate the winter solstice in addition to like joining some friends and having a little bit of a bonfire, burning my Yule log. Definitely talks about enjoying Yule foods, donating to a good cause. I think these celebrations are really supposed to be about community. So I think that just like doing things within your community and like all the different like pockets you have interests and connections in, if that makes sense, can be, I don't know, just really fulfilling and really special. I feel like that's kind of like what I've done. Like I did a little bit of like community stuff today, like giving back, and then I'm gonna do a little bit of community stuff to like celebrate, just like being social with other people who also want to celebrate the winter solstice. Like this is actually something I've always wanted to do. Whenever I was in high school, I always wanted to host like a bonfire. Whenever I was in like middle school, high school, I always wanted to host a bonfire on the winter solstice because it literally gets dark so early, especially back home in California where there's like time changes and whatever. It would have like sunset at 4:30 sometimes. I don't know when the sun sets tomorrow. That's actually an interesting thought. When does the sun set tomorrow? Tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow. Oh, it won't tell me, but the sun rises at 7:20, which is so late. It's, as an early bird, it is just so much harder to wake up before the sun does. It's just not natural. I think we're supposed to be getting more sleep. We should be doing less during our days to conserve energy, because we do get a lot of energy from the sun. I think a podcast I listened to talked about like us eating more during winter because we're like lacking the energy that we get from the sun because there's less time spent with it during the winter months, because it's different, all the concepts. You get it. If you don't, look up some science books. Moving on, back to traditions. It talks about making a Yule altar, and I think calling it an altar makes it feel very religious, and I do think that it's can genuinely just be as simple as like decorating your mantle for the season, and just decorating in general is really fun and special, and just like a sweet little activity to do whenever the seasons change. So it doesn't have to be like this whole like religious deep thing. Like you don't even have to like pray at it, but the act of like creating it and putting all your trinkets and decorations and stuff like that together can still be really special, Like it doesn't have to be that deep, guys. We just have to take the time to like actually appreciate things. Something I thought of today, actually, this is kind of random, kind of not, but just thinking about like life's purpose. I was having an existential crisis, okay? I drove to Phoenix. It was a couple hours, really early in the morning, and anytime I would zone off from my podcast, I would just settle into the daydream. And today was about life's purpose, and I think that my life's purpose is to learn how to love. And this is something that, you know, we can really get into another day, but I think that learning how to love yourself and your friends and your family and your community and nature and the world that's existing around you and the little bits and pieces of it is what makes everything good, special, enjoyable, fulfilling. All those good, nice words, things, feelings. And yeah, that's just something I've been pondering quite a bit lately. And I'm really excited and eager to continue pursuing filling my life with more love. Like, what's more beautiful than that, you know? Last little tradition is just sharing stories, you know, sharing tales of Yule lore, fostering a sense of wonder, and connecting with ancient traditions. I think you can do a little bit of everything, like honor some ancient traditions, talk about like the history of things, where things come from. Like, I feel like that's what I'm doing by like researching and like creating these little episodes. Like, this is almost like my actual like celebration, my way of honoring the season. I'm not saying that you need to go as far as, you know, to like make a podcast and like talk about it, but just like taking the time to like read a little article and think about the season, and you know, that can be enough this go around. Maybe next year you can do a little bit more now that you have some information in your noggin to help you out, to like plan something cool and special and meaningful, and just whatever works for you. Like, we should all just be doing what works for ourselves. Like, we don't need to like do what works for other people, you know? There's a lot of magic in like figuring it out on our own for yourself. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just having one of those days. I'm like feeling super chatty, but also like I'm making absolutely zero sense. But I do kind of dig that it's dark and that you can see without like a bunch of backlighting. That's cool. If only my brain cells were activated during this time. They need sunshine. I mean, I think that's pretty much it as far as the winter solstice celebration goes. Yuletide greetings. It's not greetings if it's the end. Yuletide farewells to you all. I love you dearly. I hope that you have an absolutely wonderful weekend. It was very fun to chit chat and rant and ramble with you all today. As always, you know, if you're looking for more of whatever, go ahead and check out the show notes. You can also catch us for next week's episode. We are going to be doing a little bit of a story time for Christmas. I think it'll be really, really lovely. It's definitely going to be some Christmassy, magical, wholesome vibes. So if you're interested, come on back. I would love to have you. And yeah, until next time, bye babes.